43 million student loan borrowers were eligible for relief under the president's loan forgiveness plan. But you know, the Supreme Court handed down a decision last week basically killing that plan. Joining us to talk about these latest developments and what borrowers need to do to prepare for loan repayment is a local financial professional, Michael Neuenschwander, who's with us, and he's from Outlook Wealth Advisors. Michael, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here, Owen.
So, good morning. Let's talk about this loan forgiveness program. Boy, I felt like we talked about this for months and months and months, waiting for this decision. Why was this denied by the Supreme Court?
Well, you're right. I mean, we talked about it forever, but then there were a bunch of lawsuits, and what really came of it is, the Supreme Court decided, it was targeted for roughly 43 million Americans, for giving up to 20,000 of student debt. So it had a $400 billion price tag. And the Supreme Court said, that's a little too much, even for the president, without approval from Congress. And so that was the big part. Go back to Congress, get approval, and then maybe something can move forward.
So for those that were hoping for a different outcome, is there anything left with this discussion? Does the president go back, or his administration find something else and bring it back again? What are you hearing? Anything?
So the current plan, unfortunately, is dead, but the White House did come out and say on Friday, shortly after the decision, there are a few other tools, a few other avenues that they're going to pursue, but the big part is none of those are going to come quickly. And so there are some deadlines that everybody who has a student loan has to be aware of and start to plan for regardless.
Okay, and I've heard a couple things like the interest starts accumulating at a certain time, the payments have to start at a certain time. How do we navigate this process?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I mean, the Department of Education said that beginning in October, everybody has to start paying back on those student loans. But beginning in September, that interest is going to start racking up again. And for some people, those payments were only a few $100s. For others, it was close to $1,000. So you got to start planning now to kind of where you're going to fit that in the budget and make those adjustments.
Okay, so I mean, in that case, it's up to the individual, right? You have your budget. I'm going to have to figure out, what do I cut? Where do I make those savings? And that's not easy these days.
No, it's not. I mean, when we look and say, what are the mechanisms or the tips for kind of people getting that under control? It says, one, sort of take inventory. What do you actually owe? Some people it's just one loan, others it may be multiple, and one idea is even do you consolidate them, pull them together. Another good important lesson though is also you can automate your payments, and so in doing so, that will actually reduce the interest rate that you pay. And a tip for people though, even if you had it automated 2 years ago, that is not going to start up automatically. So you need to log in again, get your account reset up to kind of get going so that you don't fall behind or you don't miss payments. So
how quickly can that catch up with the borrower again? If it's like, well, I'm just going to pretend this isn't happening. I mean, by November, it starts hitting the credit again and then starts taking a personal hit.
Yeah, so this is one of those areas, because it largely is a federal program, it's going to show up everywhere. If you're delinquent, if you're falling behind, that'll impact maybe what kind of loan you can get for a car. It's going to impact, can you get a mortgage? Certainly can impact, interest rates that you pay on credit cards. So as you look at sort of budgeting and say, what might you need to cut out, or what do you need to start dialing back on so that come October you can make those payments?
Okay, and I know you don't want to necessarily tell people how to live, but I mean, boy, oh boy, these are tough decisions. Sometimes it may not be a fun thing. Oh, do I cut a vacation? This may be, do I have trouble putting food on the table? Is a person who sees this coming, knows they're in a budget deficit at home, is it worth even calling the loan servicer and saying, is there anything else? Lower a payment, lower an interest rate, anything?
It is. The other important tip, though, is if you have your loans through a private company as opposed through the federal government, that's another area you may consider moving those over. Because as the White House said, they are still working on some other things, but the likelihood that they're going to be here by October, is pretty slim.
So, boy, if it's not enough heads up, it's just a tough position folks are in right now.
Yeah, there are a few other things. I mean, depending on what your career path is, there are some ways to also reduce that student debt or eliminate it.
So, is that right?
People that are going into education, going into the military, going into civil service, all of those employers, all of those jobs have mechanisms to reduce your student loan or even pay it off.
So look for an education benefit maybe beyond that.
Yeah, if you're in between jobs or you're starting your career, maybe that's something to consider.
All right, and then if we've got it all together, together. We call a wealth advisor like you, someone to help us budget and put all the things in the right places.
Happy to help.
All right, Michael Neuenschwander, thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming in today. Down from the Woodlands, we appreciate you taking the drive, and good luck out there if this is an issue that you're dealing with. I know it's going to be a rough few months for you.